Hello, this is iBicycle. This is Blair. I'm assuming you tuned in for a reason to modify your electric smoker. This happens to be my smoker. It's a Masterbuilt. It is all electric. It does have a tray in it for fluids, for apple juice, anything you'd want to smoke with, and a chip tray. I picked this up years ago. This thing has lots of miles on it. I used it quite a bit in its original configuration. A few words about its original configuration. It comes with of course, an electric element in the bottom, and this thing that plugs into it. First of all, this is not a thermostat. It is kind of a thermostat, it's a rheostat, and I'm not an electrical engineer, so maybe you can tell me what it is, but all it does is give you a predictable flow to the heating element. But it has no idea what the temperature inside the smoker is, which is the problem. When it turns on, your element is cold, and it warms it for a while. When it gets to an appropriate temperature, it shuts off. However, the element is still warm. When it shuts off, it takes a while to cool down, but the temperature will continue to go up a while, again because the element is warm. So when it comes down to the temperature at which it turns on, it is cold. So it takes a while to warm up. It's just like an electric stove. So you get these variations in temperature of 10 degrees as it shuts on and off. And the other thing is, since it has no way to track the actual temperature inside of the box, it has no way of knowing when that 15-pound brisket begins to get warm or when it's cold. So you have to constantly come out here and adjust it based on the meat that's inside as it gets warmer. Not a big deal if you're doing a chicken. You'll be out here for a couple of hours, 3-4 hours, it's not that big a deal. If you're doing a brisket and you're doing it the way that they say you're supposed to, which is the way I try to do it, it's going to be more like 15 hours or 20 hours. And it's no fun waking up at every hour to check the temperature, make sure it hasn't crept up on you. And I have nearly roasted several things because I just went to sleep hard and woke up and it had gone up 20 degrees. So, having said that, my solution, based on a colleague of mine, was to build an actual temperature controller, which is this thing over here. This thing is assembled from Amazon parts. I will give you the parts list that is inside the box. I will tell you how I built it. I will tell you how it works. I will not tell you all the settings because the settings on this thing are in the dozens that you can adjust on it. The bottom line is, after I bought mine, I only had to adjust two things. Change it to Fahrenheit temperature and make sure it was on SSR. SSR is solid state relay, which is what is the magic that happens with this thing. So the way this works is I plug the temperature controller into the wall over there, and I plug the element into this end. And this temperature controller actually has a thermocouple, again it's on the list of parts, that monitors the temperature inside the box and keeps it at a steady temperature. For my box, I have a little hole back here. I just plug it in there and I'm off to the races. It works really well. I've done turkeys with it, I've done briskets with it. You can tell this thing has a lot of miles on it again. I may try to give it some paint, don't know. But I'm not done with this yet. One of the things that happens with this temperature controller is that instead of turning the element off and on, as it approaches the temperature, the optimal temperature inside, or the preset temperature inside of your oven, it begins to pulse the element. When it pulses the element, it never completely heats up and it never completely cools down, so it remains at relatively constant temperature. The net effect of that is you can literally plug this thing in, set your temperature, and go back to bed, which that is my point for this whole video, is I am the lazy cooker. I like the slow cooked barbecue, but I don't have the heart to stay up all night monitoring a fire and keeping it going, so this does it for me. The downside to this, because the element never completely heats up, the chip tray inside I don't think gets hot enough to produce smoke. So that brings me around to modification number 2, adding more smoke to my smoker. So again, on Amazon, I picked up this char griller tabletop smoker, and I'm going to connect it into my smoker. Got a few additional parts. You have to have a chimney. Every good smoker has to have a chimney. So I will mount this on the smoker, and that's going to be my new chimney, and I'll try to get some type of a flapper, what do you call that, a damper, and put it on there. Again, I'm not the most technical person in the world, but that's the plan for today. I will connect it in. I found some electrical conduit at a local hardware store, and I will just cut holes into the smoker, or smokers. I'll have my firebox here, I'll have my constant heat here, and I'll have my smoke going out there. So hopefully this will get my bark back on my brisket, which I've been missing. I haven't had a good bark on the brisket. I feel like it's because I never fully get the amount of smoke that is required to produce that. So here we go. I will next open up the temperature controller so you can see how it is built. Back again, I have opened up the controller so you can see what it looks like on the inside. This box is just a cheap plastic box. I've got these two junction headers for electrical connections that I just jumpered on it. You can't really see where they're jumpered, but these are jumpered together for the power. Actually, that's ground, isn't it? No, that's power, and then that's ground. I'm not an electrical engineer. Your best friend, of course, is always a volt-ohm meter to volt-ohm all this out. Make sure you don't become an accident. So the power, I just got a big heavy cord to come in. That goes to the two junction boxes here. The controller itself is powered off of these two leads, one to each of these. This pair of wires is what actually turns the SSR off and on. They connect in to these two terminals. And then on the other end of the SSR, that is the always on power, and this is the terminal that is switched, and it goes to the plug to pulse the element off and on as needed. It's very easy to hook up. Once you understand the concept, it's easy to hook up. And then the thermocouple is attached here. These are all diagrammed very well on the outside of the controller to tell you how to hook it up. It's not that hard. I only had to change a couple of settings on here. You're done. I just kind of notched this out for the connections for the controller going out, and then of course for the top of the box, it's just notched out for where those connections go in and out. I wanted these terminals with a cover. It's got a plastic cover on it, and the main reason is I'm not interested in being a Darwin Award and frying myself, so I wanted something a little bit safer. The relay was thought to be needed. It's always good to have. It's a good heat sink in case, because this thing can get hot. It does have about 13 amps going through it, but heat is not a problem with this unit. I've had it going in the summer, and I just haven't been able to tell any temperature difference. So you're looking at about, I don't know, $50 to $65 worth of an investment here. It's very reliable, it's very stable, it keeps that constant temperature going, and again, that's what I'm into, is not having to come out and adjust temperature. I don't mind coming out and adding smoke, but adding temperature is a different thing. You get these wild fluctuations in your meat, and you can wind up ruining your meat, and that's that steady temperature is what is important. So this is a solution I came up with. Well, it's ugly. Time got away from me. I learned a couple of things about this guy. He's all hooked up and ready to go. For one thing, this cooker does not have an 1/8 inch wall, it has a 1/2 inch wall. So the first thing I had to do was invert the stack. So now I put a little flap up here. It's just exactly upside down, the flange. But it's attached. You can't see a thing about it. Black on black on black. So anyway, I've got it hooked up. I've got the heat probe, heat thermometer, heat monitor ready to go, and I'm going to do a burn, see what I come up with.